The data center market is booming, and no one has felt it so much as CEO Guy Willner, who joins me now to explain how his year has been after cashing in $260 million in investment to build a new data center in Russia. Guy, thanks a lot for talking to me.
Thank you.
You've had an extremely busy year. You've got a massive funding round to build your second data center in Russia. You're expanding your Moscow data center. You're involved in the launch of IXcellerate in Africa this week. What are you doing? Why are you so busy? Where's the demand?
The emerging markets are just exploding at the moment. So the demand is enormous, and we're just following where the demand is.
But the Russian data center, so the second one, is $260 million to invest over the next 5 years in partnership with Tencent as well. How did the partnership come along, and why the location that you chose?
Well, Tencent's one of our partners, but I mean they're a big customer of ours. So they're a big customer, they're a big partner. But we also have other companies that are very, very big with us. It was a whole range of companies from the US through to Europe, through to Russia, through to China. And that's the interesting thing about Moscow, is you're kind of in the middle of Europe and Asia.
And then for the new data center, is Tencent going to be one of your anchor tenants?
I probably will, but there will be other customers as well. So it just so happened that when we did our first big expansion, Tencent were there to get in. So at the moment we're completing Moscow 2, which is going to double our capacity, and we're actively looking at other expansion in Moscow and beyond for the Russian company.
Okay, within the same campus or within Moscow?
Within Moscow, so we'll probably be looking at different locations.
Okay. Have you seen any interest from hyperscalers grow in the past few months as well?
Yeah, our business has exploded with hyperscalers. Okay. So if you look at the comparable benchmark such as Terraco in South Africa, up till about 4 years ago, Terraco was just signing customers sort of 10 racks, 20 racks, and then suddenly a tsunami wave arrived of hyperscalers, and now they have dozens of megawatts of hyperscale in their business. We're about 4 years behind Terraco in development in Russia. And so we're just at the beginning of that S-curve, so it's just beginning to explode. So we've got a couple of 6 megawatts already, and then there's a third one coming in the next 6 months.
Okay, but if we look into the next decade for IXcellerate, do you have any numbers in mind of how many data centers you're going to be running on, how many megawatts, square footage?
Well, it's tricky. I mean, I remember back years ago in the US, they were talking about building data centers everywhere where there was an NFL league team. So that's one way of looking at it, because it's all about eyeballs and populations. If you look at populations, there are, depending on what statistics you want to look at, but there are a minimum 12 cities in Russia which have more than 1 million population. Germany has 3, France has 1. So I'd expect that there'd be 12 locations where there are data centers in Russia in the next 10 years. So, and there's nothing outside Moscow and St. Petersburg currently, nothing really of a world sort of class or scale.
And you've got a good footprint there. But you've also mentioned Terraco, and you've been involved in the launch of IX Africa recently, so with the data center in Nairobi in Kenya. How did that project come about? Again, it's an emerging market, it's a huge market, Kenya. What do you expect from that market?
Well, when we were at Terraco, we were looking at Kenya, and then we decided not to. We decided to focus purely on South Africa. But after that sort of initial look, we started getting investors coming and saying, hey, do you want to do Kenya? Do you want to do Kenya? So we spent quite a few years looking at the market there. In the meantime, we'd talked to some of the hyperscalers, and they said, oh yeah, tell us when you're opening, we're going to come.
But it's interesting in Africa, so we expect you to sort of expand beyond Kenya. There's a lot of construction out there in Angola, in Lagos. What sort of markets are you looking
I just want to do my Kenya thing for the moment. I just want to get that moving, and it's a big campus. It's we got a couple of hectare of land there, 17,000 meters. So we got a lot to build there. We got 66 kilovolt lines just nearby, so we can pump in loads of power. So I just want to focus on that for the moment, and then we'll see where we in the team go. I mean, I'm just chairman of that business. I'm going to let the team build it.
Okay, but as a man of emerging markets, what about places like Latin America and Southeast Asia? Are you looking to anything there? Are you setting up
I've got quite modest ambitions at the moment. The Russia business is very much in Russia. There's so much to do. It's the biggest country on the planet, so there's 50 years of data center development to do there. And this Kenya thing's kind of almost like a a side project that I've been looking at for 4 or 5 years, and I just want to get it moving.
But then, for example, when you compare the investment strategy, or when investors were looking to do the two different projects, so the one for Russia and then the one for Kenya, how does sort of differ, the sort of questions that they ask, or the concerns, or are there any concerns?
Well, the similarities are they're both emerging markets, which means the cost of capital is very high. These are very fast-growing economies. So data center markets, like in Russia, it's going 22% a year for the next 5 years. So that's
which is more than the global average.
Exactly, it's so much faster than Western Europe, where Western Europe and the US may well go X-growth in the next couple of years, whereas emerging markets exploding. So those are the similarities. The differences are there are no sanctions on Kenya, that's clear, but Kenya has a less stable financial system, whereas in Russia, the lady who runs the Bank of Russia has won European banking prizes for the past 3 years for her financial stability packages. So you've got a stable country but with sanctions, and you've got a kind of slightly more interesting country but with no sanctions. So in the end, it kind of the same.
And it makes your job very exciting, I'm sure.
Yeah, and the exciting is building the team of people from the country. Like in Russia, we have 70 staff now, and I think there's only 2 people who are non-Russian.
Okay.
So we've sort of Russified the business over the past 2 years, and it's a very smart country. Same in Nairobi. There's very, very smart tech people there as well. So. We're looking forward to building that team up.
Okay, well, we're looking forward to hearing about the employment rate.
Thank you.
And then, beyond emerging markets, there's also the conversation around edge computing. How are you getting involved with edge computing, and what sort of tier 2 cities you probably will be looking to?
We're keeping an eye on that. It's difficult to work out the economics. We're beginning to see merging of telecom towers and data centers. It's not happened yet. They're 2 different planets. Telecom towers and data centers run by different people, but it's interesting to see how they might start converging, and it's all hinging around 5G.
Okay, and then when we next hear from you in terms of news of launching something, opening something, what is it going to be about?
Probably more about internet exchanges and peering, because we're really getting quite into that at the moment.
Okay, and all around the same sort of regions where you're present at the moment?
Yeah, sort of ecosystems. I mean, within IXcellerate, we operate a carrier-neutral peering platform called Eurasia Peering. So that gives us a passport to go into anywhere from Istanbul to Tokyo. So we're looking at that. We have 2 locations currently, but we're looking with the Eurasia Peering team at maybe sort of beginning to spread out.
Well, just let me know about it.
Thank you.
And then we are at Data Clouds 2019 in Monaco. What do you expect to happen in the next 12 months that people will be talking about in 2020 as a market?
I think as a market, we'll continue seeing the sort of galloping rollout of the hyperclouders who will dominate the volume. So they'll represent 80% of all the take-up in data centers. But if you look at today, for example, 44% of the world's hypercloud is in the US, and 75% of the world's hypercloud is in 6 countries. So there's another 180, 190 countries into which some hypercloud will go. So I think what we'll see over the next year, 2, 3 years is an emergence of hypercloud in non-Western markets, which is quite exciting.
Okay, that sounds good. Thanks a lot for talking to me, Guy.
Thank you.
Don't forget you can follow Data Economy on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter and Instagram, and also visit the website on www.data-economy.com.